Karch, this is the crowning achievement of new gaming and having hot takes.
That's
Great
right.
timing, because Monster Hunter came out when?
Less than a week ago. It came out on Friday last week.
And what platform, for the people who don't know?
Nintendo Switch only, coming to PC later, probably like a year. I think it's a year exclusivity.
Oh, nice.
Which is a similar thing that happened to World. Unfortunately, it doesn't. If it's following anything like World, there won't be like crossplay or progression or anything like that. The PC version kind of started from the baseline, and then they maybe at a quicker rate added the like extra content, not DLC. Yeah, I guess DLC, whatever you want to call it. And then eventually it got the expansion Iceborne as well. But if you want to play it right now, get it on the Switch.
Monster Hunter Rise.
Monster Hunter Rise. It is so much fun. And it's hard to talk about this game to someone who's never played a Monster Hunter. So I won't really. Like, I'm not going to
Well, luckily, I'm very experienced in Monster Hunter.
So experienced. I'll explain the basics of Monster Hunter. You get a big old weapon, usually, and you go fight big old monsters. And you carve up their parts, and you make armor out of them. You make weapons out of them. It is a great premise. And then you do it again. And again, 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 until you've killed them all and you're done.
Till the RNG gods smile upon you.
Exactly. And for the most part, the RNG doesn't become a factor till the very end game. And you want to be the best of the best. Otherwise, if you kill the monster 2 or 3 times, you're going to have all the pieces you need to make that piece of armor or weapon. But there's also a huge history and multiplayer component where you can join up with up to 3 other hunters for a total of 4 people on one hunt. And you just all gang up on that monster. And it's always a lot of fun when people with various weapons are doing their best, getting flung and flying themselves and smacking monsters. And everybody, different weapons have different strengths. So it's nice to have those, like I'm a hammer guy, and hammers are big, heavy. That you go for the head, and you go for the legs, and you try to knock that monster on its butt. And every monster can get knocked out and knocked over. And then everybody can wail on it, and that's what the hammer is good at. And but I can't cut, so I can't cut the tail off, and the tail is often a very vital part of any particular crafting thing. And so, that the multiplayer is fun, but it's also really useful, but not necessary. You can play this whole game by itself.
Question for you, Karch.
Yeah.
How do they scale difficulty with as you have more than
monster
one hunter?
Monster health is the only thing that I'm aware of that scales. I don't think the damage goes up because even by yourself, monster hits you, and if you don't have like top notch, defense oriented armor, you're still going to lose like a third of your health, even at the lower levels. So yeah, for the most part, it's just monster health. So if you've got 4 people, and I think this. So in the past, what it's done is if you had any more than one, it had the health for 4 players. And then World did something a little different, and I think Rise is the first one to actually scale for every person that's there. So if you got 2, it doubles, 3 triples, or whatever the scaling is. It counts for that. So that's kind of cool. And
that's
found
really
that
nice.
Yeah, it is. And I found that so far no hunts are taking too long. I don't feel like anything has too much health. There was one I accidentally joined a multiplayer hunt, but I did it by myself. And so I was wondering, why is this taking so long? And then I realized at the end, I was like, oh, whoops. So
was your team just off somewhere else, or you didn't get it didn't matchmake?
So the game it's always kind of done this, but I'm really not that much of an expert. I played a lot of one of the 3DS ones. I played a decent amount, not too much of World, relatively anyway. So I've only ever played 2 of these games, and there's 7 of them. But you can always play a lot of it by yourself, but it's always designed around the multiplayer, especially the end game content, they call it high rank. For the first time, though, they've divided it. And so you have these things called village quests, and those are very specifically, these are for you in your single player offline mode. And it's kind of like 2 stories happening simultaneously, 2 paths happening simultaneously, where you fight kind of the same monsters on one, kind of the same on the other, but slightly different. And so the other ones are hub quests. And what I did is I joined a hub quest, but I didn't turn my online on so nobody could join me. And so that's what happened. But yeah, so hub quests are basically, again, the multiplayer ones. So you can do two things. You can start your own like hub and invite up to 3 other people to join like your session. That can be randoms, but that's also what you would do if you have, like if you guys were going to join me, we would start a thing and you guys would come to the village and we'd all be in the same village at the same time, and then we would go on the hunts together. Or you can do a kind of an ad hoc thing where like I can start a quest and I can say, hey, I want to start this quest and anybody who else is looking can join me whenever. I'm not creating like a session per se, but this hunt is open for others to join. And then other people can go to their board and be like, look, I want to find a one that's in play right now. And then, I'll start the hunt out and then maybe right away all 4 people show up, or maybe over the course of 5 minutes, 4 people show up, but eventually at least 2 or 3 do. And then, you just go at it, but it's seamless. That's it. That's just no cutscenes like World had. I mean, there are cutscenes, but like no weird requirements, no bizarre stuff.
That's what I was going to ask. Does it seem pretty easy to, if we wanted to play together, to get into a game? Because I remember it was a little bit difficult doing Monster Hunter World. It took us probably, 30, 45 minutes from the time we booted up to when we were actually in a game together. And then it was really hard to join the same quest.
No, it'd be pretty easy. I might have to do your lower quests for a little while. Like, I don't know if you'd be able to join some of the higher ones. And you wouldn't want to necessarily because you wouldn't be at that hunter rank yet, but it would be much easier. Maybe 20 minutes the most for you guys to just kind of get through some of the tutorial stuff.
Well, remember, we weren't even in the same hub world.
Yeah, I haven't done it yet, but I really feel like it would be way, way easier. Like, I just don't think it would be that difficult.
And how much time did you say you might need to play before you could actually get going on?
Maybe 20 minutes. It's fuzzy in my memory how long.
Yeah, that's not bad at all, though.
Yeah, but like if you'll remember from World, Jason, there was this whole like to-do about starting, and there was like basically a tutorial scenario where in this they just drop you in the village, and it's a tutorial of sorts, but it's basically just the first level. They just get you going. Speaking of tutorial, it's heavy. This is a steep entry for anybody who's just like, I just want to check out Monster Hunter. No, you don't just check out Monster Hunter. Know that this is antiquated. Like the way they do things is the way they've always done things. And yes, they've made a lot of quality of life improvements over the years, but that's from the perspective of somebody who's been playing the whole time or is familiar with how they used to. If you're coming into this game thinking like a Jason, you're probably going to have a bad time. So know that there's going to be a lot of dumb text boxes on screen. And you can skip most of them once you figure out how to take the quest and use your weapon. Like, there are certain things you have to know, but then you can learn everything else at your own pace. And again, I'm just describing Monster Hunter at this point, so I'm going to move on to what's new about Monster Hunter Rise. Yeah. So it's on the Switch, and that's awesome. And it runs flawlessly. I have had 0, what I can tell anyway, and sometimes things are chaotic, so who knows, but I've had 0 drops in FPS. I don't have weird graphical issues with like, what do you call it, pop-in, or what's the thing when you're looking at stuff far away?
Render, draw distance.
Viewing distance.
View and draw distance are fine. Like, the levels are definitely smaller, but that's fine. Like, this is a handheld game, basically. You can play it on your TV, but they designed this kind of like they designed their older ones, but with some of the niceties. So there's no, like, screens between sections. It's all one open world, just like World was, which was the first time they did that. And like, it's just, it's easy to memorize a map. It doesn't take more than like 2 or 3 like hunts to, you got to spend some time going to some of the nooks and crannies to be like, okay, this is the quickest path here, and that's the quickest path there, and don't go that way because it's the wrong way, those kinds of things. But I've already encountered like 4 or 5 maps, and they're all very different. You got your shrine ruins, which is like a very old forest with bamboo and lots of dilapidated ruins. Very, very heavy Japanese aesthetic always, but especially in this one. And I'm loving every minute of it. So they added 2 huge things. 2 biggest new things are wire bugs and palamutes. Palamutes. So you've always had the little cat friends. They're called palicos. And they're little cats. They're sentient. They can talk and stuff. They only meow in the game. They don't have like voices, but they do talk to you. and they're always in the village, and some of them are blacksmiths, and some of them are chefs, and some of them are quest givers and that stuff, but you always have one as your friend, and you can build him armor and stuff, and he always has like little abilities, like he can drop a health potion essentially, or like if you get knocked out or sleepy or something, he'll kick you awake or slap you out of it, that kind of stuff. And he does little like chip damage the whole time. Well, they added a dog, and the dog is just the best. And you can take a cat and a dog with you. You can take 2 cats or 2 dogs. And the dog you can ride. And oh, it's so much fun to just hop on that sucker from the get-go. And it's so great. And the dog can drift. All my Mario Karting has paid off. The dog can drift. And he gets a speed boost after the drift, just like in Mario Kart. And so it's so much fun.
I can't wait for the dog race DLC.
Me too. That's gonna be awesome. That would actually not be like the worst idea. Or I bet people are gonna make up their own little mini games where like hey, let's race to the end of this thing, and like we do when we're kids and stuff. But he can run up, not every wall because there's a lot of verticality because of the wire bugs, which I'll talk about in a sec. But the dog can run up vines, so you don't have to get off your dog and climb up the vines and then get back on your dog. And he's always there. Like the only time he's not ready for you is when like he's in the middle of a fight or he's distracted by like a smaller monster. But you can call him and be like, hey, stop that, come to me, let me hop on you and let's go. You can use items, and so weapon sharpness is a stat that degrades over time as you attack a monster. And you got to sharpen your weapon to get it back up to the top level in the middle of a fight. Monsters often, there are phases and they run away and you got to chase them. Well, while you're on your Palico, you can just sharpen your weapon, so you're cutting down time. So it's just this beautiful quality of it's like, oh, who knew this was missing? We didn't, but we're so glad that the Palamutes, I said Palico a second ago, the Palamutes are there. So they're awesome, and again they fight too. They've got their knives and their daggers in their mouths, and they're like slashing and stuff, like cool anime wolf dogs. And I love them, and I hope they're here to stay. And the other new thing are wire bugs, which are basically grappling hooks, except they're tied to a resource. So you start every mission off, you have 2, and you use one, and you get a little, like circle that fills out slowly as it comes back. And by slowly, I mean, pretty quick, but just not instantaneously. And so what you can do is I can throw a wire bug at a wall, and then I can wall run up as long as I have stamina. And then he'll do a little hop off the wall, and if I got another wire bug, I can rewire myself to the wall, and at that point, I've got some more stamina back that's recovered already. I can run up a wall. And so, like, getting around the map between the dog and the wire bugs has never, ever been so much fun. It's like all the fun of, like, climbing in Breath of the Wild without the slowness. And also, I have a grappling hook and a horse that can climb the mountain with me. It's amazing. It's, like, the best way I can put it. And it makes discovering the secrets and where the best little, like, because you can mine and you can gather resources, but the really good stuff's hidden. And now it's hidden on top of stuff and in caves. Yeah. And you can find extra camps that let you fast travel within the map, because you always have the same starting location, but there are secret camps that you have to find and then do a quest to unlock. But then once you do, you can just hop around the map really quick with fast traveling. And loading times, dude, you'd think I was running off an SSD. Like, there are none. Like, once I get into the game, the village is like sectioned out, so you have the main area, and then you have like like 3 other sections, and you have to like transition between them, but it's instantaneous. And there's a fast travel system within which I can just select to go to those areas. And again, like there's just no loading. It's awesome.
You talked about kind of the exploration for resources and whatnot, and I know you also said the maps are not huge, but is there that also kind of Breath of the Wild aspect of like, that looks interesting over there, I just want to spend my time kind of exploring and running up that because I think there might be something?
Yeah, but bite size, like real bite size. And again, like once you discover it, it's always the same. There's no randomness to this. Like,
okay, so like
aside from
once you find that, hey, there's a mining location here, basically every time you load into that area, you're like, oh, let me run by and mine that area because I may need that resource. Yeah,
it doesn't like mark it on your map necessarily. But if you know it's there, or like a nice little like, and stuff like refreshes, some slower than others, like certain mining crop or mining nodes will refresh slower than others, but you can kind of do a loop if that's what your goal is, at least in this particular hunt. So, but
Sean, not to be confused, this is not an open world game. This is like, here's a hub world. You go to this mini map.
Yeah, I got that. I just want sure.
I just
without a
say
great
that
idea
because
of the size of these little individual maps, whether or not it kind
Gotcha.
of had this urge to explore, or if they're still, like Karch said, kind of bite sized, so it's not quite that level.
Gotcha. Yeah, I always thought there would be more hunting in Monster Hunter.
Yeah, I remember your first kind of like almost disappointment, and it just never crossed my mind what you thought monster hunting was, which would be a cool game unto itself as well, almost like a Shadow of the Colossus, but with more meat to it, you know?
Yeah.
And again, but no, that's not what this is. It's very, very goal oriented, very, again, especially on the Switch, smaller and bite sized, and yeah, it doesn't look as good, but it still plays just as good, and I'm having a great time.
And for a Switch game, everything I've seen, it's a pretty game.
Yeah, and it is. Like, some people are like, oh, it's hideous. I'm like, I don't know. Like, I really honestly think, aside from like certain like particle density and like effects and stuff like that, the biggest difference between the two is the lighting. The lighting makes an enormous difference and you know, certain textures are lower res, obviously, but
Sure.
the biggest difference is the lighting, in my opinion. And things might be just a smidge smaller in scale. But you know, multiple monsters are back on the same map and they fight each other and you can ride them. That's another huge addition, is that in Monster Hunter World you could mount it, but basically that was like a very quick mini game where like you would jump and attack it, and then you would enter like a mounting, you know, scenario, and you just kind of stab it over and over again with your knife, and then you would have to like press a button to hold on when it tried to shake you off, and that was the extent of that. Now, after you use the wirebugs can also have they have wirebug moves. So for my hammer, I have unique moves associated with my wirebug resource, so I can hold on to it at all times to make sure I have optimal, like, you know, movement, because basically it acts as a dodge as well in combat, a super dodge, because you can always like roll, but now you can like throw out a wirebug off to the side and just get the heck out of there when a monster comes
grappling
charging.
hook your way out of an attack.
Exactly. But you can also use it as an attack, and like I think everybody gets two, like a light one and a heavy one. At least I haven't tried any of the other weapons, but that's my assumption because I have a light one and a heavy one. One basically, I charge up and then like I kind of fling myself forward in like a rolling Sonic attack. And during the attack, I'm impervious to damage, which is nice because, you know, monster charges me and I charge it. Mr. Hammerman, like let's go kind of thing. And the other one is like a really slow wind up, jump in the air, real slow, come down, but then do some massive damage that hits like twice. And that uses two of those resources. That's about it. Like I said, aside from that, which is, you know, kind of a lot, but at the same time not, everything you expect from Monster Hunter is there. All the menus and the items and the tutorials and the details and the stats, it's all there. I don't know which monsters are new except for like the one on the cover, Magnamalo, which I actually fought earlier today, and he is angry. He doesn't like you at all. And he kept kicking my butt. And you got to be careful though, because I joined a multiplayer one. I forgot to load up on any of my items, so I was basically like, "Oh, I can't get hit. Like I can't die, otherwise I'm screwed." Because what happens you have a 50-minute time limit on almost every single hunt, unless it's less to like increase the difficulty, and then you can faint 3 times, so you get knocked out 3 times. Except that's true for multiplayer too. So now you got 4 people. And sometimes you just get stuck.
And you all share that 3 feints?
Yes, that's correct.
Oh.
Yeah. But, you know, like for the most part, like, I don't know how the matchmaking works. I mean, I do know how, I guess, the matchmaking works. Like, if you've gotten to this point in the game, you know, you're all on the same quest, and presumably you're all roughly the same skill level. But sometimes you just get stuck with somebody who's like, what are you doing, guy? Like, you just died. Like, you got knocked out 3 times in a row, like, immediately. Like, have you ever played this game? How did you get to this point, kind of thing? But for the most part, you know, I'm playing with really good people, and we just kill that monster, and like I haven't gotten to the
low key pat yourself on the back.
Low key pat
You
myself.
play with pretty much people your own skill level. I mean, I play with pretty good people.
I do. No, I honestly have not got to the part where it's hard yet. Like I remember when I crossed the threshold. They call it again high rank. I crossed the threshold into high rank both on the 3DS and the on the PS4 for Monster Hunter World. And I was like, wow, that's right. This is where the game really starts, because those guys do not mess around, and you get hit like twice, and they just punish you for making any kind of mistake. It's awesome.